Right now, let's get to NFL Blitz.
Welcome to the NFL. With news and notes from around the league, this is NFL Blitz on Dukes and Bell.
NFL Blitz brought to you by our friends at Priority Men's Medical Centers. Check them out at PriorityMen'sMedical.com. All right, we talked about David Carr. This is outside of the Super Bowl because we're going to talk a lot about the game and all the things that transpired. Cleet Holmes just hit us up. He said, fellas, the fact that the Eagles didn't get a sack just blows me away with how dominant they were this year. To me, it's the game story. Cleet, appreciate the tweet at Put 'em Up, C. Dukes and Mike Bell, ATL. So Carr had 2 visits with the Saints. Wednesday is the deadline for his $40 million in guarantees. The Raiders are not doing this, okay?
Yeah.
So they already have come to an acknowledgement of, we're going to release you, we're going to cut you, we'll take the hit, minimum hit, but we're not guaranteeing you $40 million. Carr turns 32 on March 28th. Guys, he will then be able to go wherever he wants, Mike. And you wonder, where is he going to go? Now, why do you do this? One, you control your destiny. I'm not being traded somewhere that I say, maybe not. And then 2, teams don't have to come out of draft compensation to get you. So if you're a quarterback, Mike, and you want to go, pick your team. You want that team to have the ability to still have some draft picks. Now, the team that decides to sign him will get a compensatory pick, but that's nothing compared to what they might give up to trade for him.
Right. So now just a matter of, the Saints and Derek Carr is at a good landing spot. I always thought maybe the Dolphins as an insurance policy, but that would be expensive because he wants a big contract. You just laid it out. Even if it's not involved with the Raiders, it's still going to be an expensive proposition. And do you need to have some insurance for Tua, knowing that you might not get to let's be honest, he could get hit, Carr, 1 hit, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, and then the Jets, but is Carr, because they got a lot of weapons. Is Carr a good fit with the Jets, or are you still stuck on Aaron Rodgers?
It's going to be interesting. I think he's the number one target for teams who need a quarterback or feel like they're in the business for a quarterback.
Put Carr above Garoppolo?
Yes. Only because of the injury history.
Yeah.
That's the reason why.
And he's solid, if not spectacular. It was so strange that things fizzled the way they did. Devontae Adams, that was going to be the savior for everything with the Raiders. Josh McDaniels, and that thing got sideways midseason, seemed like. Remember that really, and they lost to the Colts. That was kind of like the lowest point for them, for those guys.
No doubt about it. All right, now, one of the storylines, is James Bradberry, the holding call. And can we hear Bradberry talk about this particular call? It happened with 1:48 left. A lot of folks around the country, and surely the entire state of Pennsylvania, believes this was the call that changed the game for the Eagles. I do not feel that way. I didn't like the timing of the call, but I don't think this is the call that lost them the game. But Bradberry, Mike, owned it.
That's not up for my judgment. I was hoping he would let it go, but of course, he's a ref. It's a big game. It was a hold, so they called it.
It was a hold.
He owned it. Eagles fans might not want to hear it, but that goes, again, does it? And we were talking to some folks on Twitter earlier. You and I talked about it to start the show. Look, you're going to call it, and Beau Morgan made a great point. Call it because don't be afraid to call it as an official. But the trajectory of the game was going to where let somebody make a play. And it is the rules of the game, but I still wanted to see them score. Maybe we get a chance to see Eagles come back and score. But unfortunately now the lasting, aftertaste is an official. The ref making a call and not somebody excelling. A field goal we've seen Super Bowls win with a field goal, but it was getting there. To me, it got a little bit off the script was being so well written.
Yeah.
And it was like, what? And then went off the script.
So this is how I would describe this to you. And if we were sitting in a room and I had a breakdown of various plays that I could show you, not just from last night. This could be any game. You just go pick a game and we pull it off the shelf and let's look at it. And I would tell you that there's offensive holding on every call. On every play.
Right.
Okay? Offensive linemen do it every play. But referees pick opportune times to call it. Okay? There's not a play, and I'm telling you, there's not a play in the NFL where there's not a holding going on. These guys are too big. They're too strong.
What do you define of holding? Like having your fingers underneath the curl of
Correct.
the jersey? You see that all the time. Guys get leverage.
When this happens, right, and you see an offensive lineman, and this is how I described last night, when you see an offensive lineman like, you're calling that now? I've been holding this dude all game, and now you're calling this in the fourth quarter when we're driving for the game-winning field goal or the game-winning touchdown. You've decided to, whatever I've been doing all game is now a holding call. And that is the problem. The consistency of, hey, I'm telling you guys right now, it's like an NBA game. I'm calling the ticky-tack stuff all night just so you guys know. Don't just call that in the fourth quarter when the game's on the line. Fans feel cheated.
And you know what? That's very, both basketball and football, ACC refs do that all the time. To your point, big moment, big score, big first down, that's when the flag comes out, which drives people crazy. We'll talk more about Duke and Virginia, speaking of refs, a little bit later in the show. That hit people hot.
Oh, man, it's crazy. As far as last night, Patrick Mahomes, 2 regular season MVPs, 2 chips, 2 Super Bowl MVPs in 5 seasons. No one's ever done that. Not even the great Tom Brady. And Mike, he's only 27 years old. We're telling you that this guy could have 1 or 2 more of these before the age of 30. Guys, that's uncanny. So you get 2 in your 20s and you feel like you've had a career for the ages and you might want to step away.
Right.
He's 27. And we said this team's good and they'll be good next year. And I know Sean Payton's in Denver and all the stuff with the Chargers. They're still the team to beat.
Yeah. And you got Andy Reid, and Andy Reid's not going. What, he's 61, Beau?
Yep.
He's not going anywhere. So you've got the machine. You got a guy who drafts well. You got everything you need. The Eagles, because you can argue the Eagles aren't going anywhere. Not lost to many people was just how good Jalen Hurts was. We talked about this. Patrick Mahomes giving him credit. If you go by fantasy statistics, it's the best fantasy performance since Steve Young for the 49ers in 1995. Jalen Hurts, even with the 2 points you'd lost for the fumble, he still had, it would have been 41.6 fantasy points for Jalen Hurts last night. He did much better statistically than Mahomes, although Mahomes had 3 touchdowns. And the only thing, as we said, Carl, you could argue with was the ball that no one touched. He just fumbles it, comes right back on the next drive, scores a touchdown. But that's the only blemish on it. And it's unfortunately it came down to one possession that was the fumble that really you could argue in the grand scheme of things. That's what maybe Eagles fans should be looking at, not the official. Or you say it's and he more than made up for it in the scope of the game based on those stats.
Listen, Mike, most guys choke in that position. They fumble it away, they get in their head,
right,
and they're done. Like, now I'm playing timid. Now, did you see when they got the ball back? You see what they did? They came right back out and ran a quarterback play.
It was a run play, yeah.
Immediately.
When he gets in the end zone, all the linemen are up there, picking him up. Yeah, I mean, the guy. That's why they love the guy from a leadership standpoint. And I know it's so cliche. Well, you hate to have somebody lose this game, but Jalen Hurts played his butt off.
He was great. Real quick, I want to ask you guys. The field was crap. I don't know if we've ever seen a field as bad as we saw last night in Arizona. And, oh, by the way, I mean, it's not like, they don't have the roof thing and the roof was open and all this. The turf should never be that bad. I'm shocked somebody didn't get hurt. Have you guys ever seen a field in the biggest game of the season that bad? Turtle, you seen a field like that?
No, I mean, the Philadelphia kicker's leg almost buckled underneath him when he was kicking off on one play. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. They said it was the players were complaining where the logo was for the Super Bowl on both 24, 35-yard lines. That was shimmery, and that was the grass was sweating. Where that was. They've had issues. I don't understand this because for years they'd always bring in, I think it's Mark Morris is the director of field operations for the NFL. Supposed to have the best grounds crew on the planet.
Yep.
And this one is kind of, look, it's one thing if it's the Jets against the Dolphins in 82 and they flood the field so the Jets can't run and throw. That's different. This is the Super Bowl. It's supposed to be the ultimate pristine neutral site, and it wasn't.
Yeah, but this field, this is the field that rolls out. Remember?
Right.
This
like a pizza oven.
Yeah, because they
like a toaster oven, yeah.
They have to grow it outside because the roof's not open enough, so they roll it in. It's always bad in bowl games and stuff at this field. It's not a great one. I know the paint got blamed a little bit, but it was the field in general. I mean, all the parts where the field wasn't painted. So this is an Arizona problem that the league needs to have them fix.
It is.
If we're going to get penalized for a damn ice storm,
right,
then they need, which we can't control, then they need to get penalized for a field which they control.
Right. The other thing was, and I saw this when I'm watching the game, speaking of Atlanta and, of course, the voting rights bill, which everyone had their interpretation on, hearing the tomahawk chop chant. Nobody makes a big deal about it. The Kansas City Chiefs, they play Fly, Eagles Fly. They're playing the drums. It's only when it's here in Atlanta that some people seem to have a meet on nationally, which drives me crazy.
Yeah, that's not going anywhere for the Chiefs. Franco says coach is 64.
Okay.
He's 64, Andy Reid. Okay. We said 61.
Right.
He's not retiring. He's not retiring.
Kool-Aid Man is not going anywhere.
He's not retiring.